Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hope you're all having a good evening. I'm going to let a couple more people log in and then we'll get started. Right. I think we're going to get going and we'll just let people join as I kick things off here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening, or I guess it's almost evening. It could be very late in the evening, depending on where you're logging in from. I'm Lara Hamilton. I have Book Larder, which is a cookbook shop here in the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle. We normally do a lot of author talks as part of our sort of programming and reason for being at the store. And since the pandemic, we have moved these talks to Zoom. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm delighted to welcome back Pamela Salzman, who joined us live in the shop with the release of her previous book and is now here to celebrate this great book that just came out this spring, Quicker Than Quick, her second cookbook. She is a cooking instructor and has very graciously agreed to sort of show off those skills by doing a demo as part of this chat. So you will get to see her make one of the recipes in the book. We are definitely going to have time for questions. So if you could just use the Q&A button that you'll find at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions. You can use the chat to sort of talk to each other, but the Q&A makes it a little bit easier for me to sort of track what kinds of things people are interested in. And if you also want to use the chat to just like tell us where you're logging in from or say hello, please feel free to do that. The book is available at Book Larder's website, booklarder.com. You support this event and just generally what we're doing at Book Larder when you purchase the book from us, and so we're very grateful for that. We're going to spend about probably just under an hour, around an hour with the talk, and like I said, it will have a demo and we will definitely have time for questions, and then the talk itself will be on the Book Larder YouTube channel within about 48 hours. So you will be able to rewatch it or share it with friends from there if you would like. All right, so I'm going to welcome Pamela. She can join us in the conversation. Here she is. Hi, Pamela. Welcome.
How are you?
So good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you, and congratulations on your book.
Oh, thanks so much. It's very exciting. I've been really excited about this book. Very disappointed that I didn't get the book tour that I had worked so hard to put together, but yeah. I appreciate you, taking the extra trouble to have me on virtually.
Oh, no, we're delighted to do it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your day and for cooking for us too.
Of course.
Before we get started with that, let's talk about this.
Let's.
So just start, with what was the inspiration? Why did you decide to write this book?
As you mentioned at the beginning of the intro, I'm a cooking instructor, so I'm really responsive to my students. They kind of wrote my first book in terms of everything that they were asking me after each class, and I would get the same questions all the time, and it was like I just started to make mental notes to myself, like this should go in a book, this should go in a book. And the same thing happened with Quicker Than Quick. I was teaching a class and I didn't normally focus on very simple recipes in my class because those aren't really the kind of things that you want to spend time with in a cooking class. You want things that really lend themselves more to instruction and Q&A. So I had done this class where I had a little bit more of like these quicker recipes, and everybody flipped and people were just saying, oh, we want more of these recipes. And I'm like, really? They're like, yes, 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 we want more quick recipes. And I'm like, okay. So that's how I had the idea. And I started to realize, even with myself, I love cooking. I have no problem spending time in the kitchen. But the busier I got, the more I realized that even though I liked cooking, I didn't necessarily need to spend as much time cooking. I really wanted to start simplifying my life a little bit. So that's how Quicker Than Quick came to be. It's just a collection of, my students' favorite quick recipes.
Well, and it's interesting because even in this time when we haven't been as busy, sometimes that big cooking project, I mean, sometimes it's been fun, right? Like sourdough has boomed and, all these different things. Yeah, right. All these different things we've seen people do. But then sometimes it's like, oh my God, this is the third time I'm doing this today. Like, I just want to get something on the table. So it seems like the book is probably suits lots of different scenarios.
No, it's really interesting that you said that, because I think that a lot of us found that to be the case. We were home and really like stuck at home, and I thought to myself, like, this is now the time that I'm going to try some of these longer recipes, things that require rising and proofing. And, I'm home, I'm working from home. Like, what a dream. I can do all these great things. And then we burnt out.
Yeah.
Kids were all home. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's dishes. And so that's when I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. And I ended up reverting back to this cookbook, funny enough, and just trying to like make those faster recipes so that we weren't in the kitchen all day.
Yeah, totally. And so, you teach classes. So how have you sort of adapted your teaching and just, that part of your life in the current situation?
It's changed a lot for me. I used to teach cooking classes in people's homes 4 days a week. So the last class I taught, I think, was like March 13th or something like that. And I had already had an online cooking class platform. So, if people can't take my classes in person, I already have this monthly online cooking class subscription. So I teach the same class online that I do in my in-person classes that month. So that was already up and running. And then I had this book come out as well, and I was supposed to go on this book tour. So what I decided to do was like, you know what? I'm just going to teach people on Instagram. So on March 16th, I started going live on Instagram daily, and I went live pretty much daily for about 105 days. And I would just pick a recipe. Some were old, some were from the book, some were from my first book. And I just started to get to know my community a little bit better as well. And I have to say that was honestly such a blessing, because, when I teach in person, it's really the same people all the time, month after month. And so then I just got like this whole new group of like students. So that was really nice. And then I put together some courses. I had always planned on doing these courses, these like what I call cooking boot camps, these 4-week live courses. I had planned on launching them in September. And then when this pandemic happened, I really like pulled them together and put them on, started teaching them in the spring. So that's what I did. And it worked out great. But, that's not to say that I don't miss teaching in person. It's, definitely not quite the same, but, trying to stay connected still.
Yeah. So back to the book. Didn't mean to jump around quite that much. So nice. You talk a lot in this book about sort of some of the basic things that people can do to just set themselves up to be able to cook quickly. So what are some of the things that, like one of the things you talk about is, like really stocking your kitchen well? Like what are some of the things that you feel like are really important for people to have from both like an ingredient and sort of tool perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, a lot of times people are literally asking for the recipes. They just want those magic recipes. And it's not really just that. It's really setting up systems for yourself. Like, I'm a big believer in, number one, if you want to cook more, and also, my book and the recipes do have a more healthy-ish bent to them. So, you rely a little bit more on these whole foods. So you have to be somewhat organized and have somewhat of a plan. So in terms of systems, I really believe in meal planning. I know that some people think that it takes too much time and, it's a waste of time, but honestly, that to me is the most game-changing, I think, system that you can have in place in terms of just organizing your meals for the week on a piece of paper and then shopping accordingly. That said, I also believe you have to have a few good back pocket recipes, and I think you have to have your pantry and your fridge and your freezer stocked with at least a couple of basics that can be the foundation for a lot of great meals. And I also like to identify, especially in a book like Quicker Than Quick, I like to identify products that are also good, like things that you don't have to make from scratch necessarily, like a good quality curry paste or a good quality marinara sauce. Like you can do a lot with things like that. I'm not opposed to frozen vegetables or frozen fruits. I think they're like a busy person's best friend, frozen vegetables. There's no loss of nutritional value. I think that there's just this terrible stigma that's associated with frozen vegetables. But, that said, I think that there's not a way to cook in zero time though. So despite the title, I'm not, promising recipes that take no time,
Right.
People said to me, like, when I ask, what are your biggest challenges or what do you wish for, marketing to table in 15 minutes or less. I'm like, that's not possible. So, it's just also showing people ways to use different appliances that can help them too. I mean, I go into people's kitchens and, the food processor is still in the box. They got married 20 years ago. It's in the garage. Learning how to use those kitchen tools that are really going to help you, and especially like something like a food processor, or learning how to use an Instant Pot if that suits your lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned in the book that you don't personally have a microwave, but
Right.
you love your food processor and you have, learned to sort of love the Instant Pot, I guess. So I wanted you to just talk a little bit about each of those two tools and how you view them as
And
how they help you.
I have to say, I don't have a microwave, not because I think they're terrible. It's just that
Right.
the microwave broke and I just felt like we never used it. And and I don't have a ton of space in my kitchen, so why not use that space for other things? So that's why I don't have a microwave.
Yeah.
But the food processor to me is the best. It's like I would give up everything for the food processor because it just does so much. I use it constantly. You can use it to shred things and chop things as well as puree things. I make my pastry dough in it. I make pesto in it. I just use it for so many different things. And I think that, again, it just takes a little getting used to and a little learning how to use some of the discs and which blade is for what. In fact, I just posted a recipe for pizza dough on my website today, and I showed people how to use that plastic dough blade. Everybody's like, what is that, right? And it's great for making dough. So the food processor to me is amazing. And then the Instant Pot, listen, I'll tell you the truth. I couldn't really do a book called Quicker Than Quick without putting in a few Instant Pot recipes. It's kind of, it's like sort of the trendy, appliance of the moment. And I've taught my students how to use it. I don't necessarily think it's all that. I think it's great if you like making bone broth, if you like batch cooking beans and things like that. If your plans change and all of a sudden you feel like you want to pull lentil soup together in a half an hour, like you can do that. I don't use it as much as people think probably I do, but that said, if you are that type of person and you like making things that take a long time, ribs or brisket, or again like bone broth, it's great for that, or cooking beans from scratch, like it definitely can save you some time.
For sure. And it's summer, and so now we have a sort of I feel like this point of summer, kind of like now through about mid to late September, is like the peak time when I go to the farmer's market and I want everything and I have to stop myself from buying everything. So what are the things you're finding yourself gravitating towards this summer? What are you buying a lot of?
Well, I'm an Italian girl, right? So to me, this is tomato season. I eat tomatoes almost every day in the summer. They're great right now. And then when the summer's over, they're done. I mean, I don't even bother. So I'm looking at tomatoes, green beans, eggplant, all types of summer squash. Those are the things that I'm picking up probably most often. And then the fruit, like all the stone fruits, we've been seeing figs in Los Angeles and they're great. And then melons are really, really good right now. And there's so many different varieties that we're getting. Also bell peppers, that's a good summer. Bell peppers is summer veg. Cucumbers. So that's kind of what's showing up a lot in my cart.
Yeah. So everything pretty much.
Pretty much. I eat a lot of veggies. I mean, that's
Yeah.
lies, you know, vegetables and salads. I mean, that's really, I could just live off that.
Oh, totally. Totally. So I think you were going to make a recipe with red peppers for us today. Yeah.
I'm going to do something with sweet bell peppers. And in the book, it's called Roasted Bell Peppers with a Greek Tomato Salad. This is a very customizable recipe, like all my recipes are. I mean, that's one of the things, you know, working in Los Angeles, you really start to get to know all the diets du jour. So you have to know how to adapt for gluten-free and vegan and keto and everything. So this can be very adaptable. And I have some beautiful red peppers. I'm gonna do like a half version of this, but you know, you can do any kind of sweet bell pepper you like. I like to do contrasting colors. So if I have only red tomatoes to go on the inside of the salad, then it's nice if you can find something like a yellow or an orange tomato, because then you have that really pretty contrast. So I'm gonna leave the stem in, but I'm just pulling out the seeds because I think the stem looks, I don't know, I think it's kind of attractive, but you know, if you don't want it, you can just take it out. So this red pepper is going to be roasted until it's nice and soft. And then we're going to stuff it with the salad. Now, in a lot of the recipes, I mean, granted, they're all pretty quick, but in a lot of them, I have something on the side that says even quicker. So if you wanted to make this even quicker, you could actually grill the peppers on the grill, both sides, you know, obviously season it like I'm doing now, and then they'll be ready for you in much less time than putting in the oven. Or if it's just because it's summer and, you know, you don't want to get your oven going, you know, you can do them on the grill as well. So always we like to grease up, oil in some way our veggies before we roast them because this keeps them moist. It also gives them some flavor. I'm using olive oil, and you can totally use avocado oil if you want to. I mean, some people don't like to use olive oil at higher temperatures, and I totally understand that. It doesn't become toxic like people think it does, but it does have a lower smoke point than something like an avocado oil. So if you wanted to do that, it's fine. Then I have some garlic here. I'm a big garlic fan, really anti-inflammatory. It's like the non-sexy superfood. It is anti everything you don't want. So I'm going to just slice this up super thin like that. And then the garlic is going to go inside the cavity of the bell peppers. It's just going to give it a lot of flavor. We're going to salt and pepper these guys up, and then also add in some dried oregano. But I don't know about you. Do you grow your own herbs at all?
I do actually. My backyard is very dark, but I have like one corner where I have pots of herbs, and I do marjoram rather than oregano, just
Nice.
For whatever reason. But yeah,
if you had any fresh oregano, you could use that here as well instead of the dried. But marjoram is a nice substitute. It's a little bit more mild than, you know, a fresh oregano. Dried oregano is actually like the one dried herb I actually prefer over the fresh for some reason. I think fresh oregano can be just a little overpowering, but very antibacterial, really, really healthy for you.
Yeah.
So just a little black pepper in here. And then here's our dried oregano, which I'll just sprinkle in here. It does give it a really good flavor though. I like how it sort of melts into the pepper. And then some salt, and then these are ready to go right into the oven, like that. Okay, so This is what this looks like. Whoops. And I put them on a parchment lined baking sheet because I tend to not like to cook directly on non-stick surfaces or aluminum. So that unbleached parchment just gives me a little bit of a buffer. That's all. So now that that's in the oven, this is when you would make your tomato salad. Honestly, you could totally serve this at room temperature. You could have these done in advance. You could have them done yesterday, tuck them in the fridge, make your salad, and then put them in there. And by the same token, I also want the recipes to be like a springboard into other ideas. So if you like the idea of doing a Greek tomato salad in the bell peppers, then why not do, you know, a quinoa tabbouleh in the roasted bell pepper half, or, you know, something else that can be, you know, just as delicious. If you have any kind of a nice grain or like a rice-based salad, that could go in there as well. So I have here some beautiful like mini heirlooms, and I'm just going to cut these. Normally I would say cut them with a serrated knife, but one test to see if your knives are sharp enough is if you can actually cut through a tomato without putting too much pressure on them. So that's something, I don't know about you, but I really liked my knives to be super sharp. Do you guys sharpen your own knives at the store?
We don't do them ourselves. We have, there's someone locally that does them. And so, yeah. And we had actually just had them done right before everything happened. So, and we haven't.
You.
Yeah. Well, like the first 2 months we used them a ton because we were cooking meals for healthcare workers at one of the local hospitals.
Oh, right.
But we haven't, we've, you know, sort of had they've had intermittent use since then. So my personal knives, however, are in desperate need of a professional sharpening.
Yeah, I've been trying to do mine by myself. I have a whetstone and
Oh, yeah.
steel, so I'm trying to do mine myself, but I know it's not perfect, but at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah, totally. That's a good skill to develop for sure.
For sure. I mean, if anybody out there is wondering how to sharpen, you know, your own knives, the way I learned is how I learn a lot of things. I look it up on YouTube. So I looked it up on YouTube, like how to sharpen your own knives, and that's how I figured it out. So I've got, these tomatoes are such gorgeous colors too. I'm going to show you in a second, but I've got like red and green, and like you can see.
Oh yeah, those are lovely.
So nice. And you can do like an Italian version of this too. I mean, I'm doing a Greek version, and I'm going to have feta in here, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't do, you know, basil and some mozzarella, or, you know, like a ricotta salata sliced up real thin. You know, no reason that you couldn't do that.
Yeah, that'd be delicious.
Yeah, super good. All right, so a little olive oil just before I forget. And we're going to do some red wine vinegar in here. I might measure this. And then if you like apple cider vinegar, that's fine too. There we go. And then I'm just going to slice up some shallot, and I'm going to put in some Kalamata olives and some parsley and feta. And there is one ingredient that I actually really love in this salad, but I don't have it. It's pepperoncini, which are pickled and they're a little bit spicy. And I think something that we all learned during COVID was that you don't always need every ingredient. Like nobody was like running out to the market because they didn't have pepperoncini for their Greek tomato salad. So you just make do with what you have. I've always been that way. I believe recipes really are guidelines. So that's not something I would normally do, is just like run out to get the pepperoncini. So instead I found some marinated artichoke hearts in my fridge, and I might just cut up a couple of those and stick those in there. It's not quite the same. It has a little bit of that brininess, but then to get that bit of heat, I think I'll just throw in some, you know, these crushed red chili peppers, just to do that. There. So I'm just going to chop up some of these Kalamata olives. It's like the one weird food that all my kids actually like, even the picky one. Loves the olives. So we eat a lot of these. And I prefer to buy them already pitted. There is no reason to waste time pitting olives, that's for sure. Okay, so that's gonna go in there. And like I said, I think I'll just take a couple of these marinated artichokes. Another thing that I would probably never do is peel back enough artichokes to get to all the hearts. So the frozen bag of artichokes from Trader Joe's is always in my freezer. It is just one of those things where, you know, I can make a quick side dish out of them. I just roast them. Sometimes I put them on a cheese board. I'll tuck them into like an Italian chopped salad. Just the frozen ones, you know, olive oil, salt, and pepper. It's really good. Okay, so I'll add this in here. And then I think I've got a shallot somewhere around here. And this is optional. I know not everybody likes, you know, raw onion, but I'll tell you a little trick, which is that if you want your raw onion to just have, not you, Lara, I know you know this, but.
I love raw onions.
Yeah, but some people don't like the harshness of it.
Yeah.
So what you can do is cut it up, whether it's, you know, sliced or diced, if it's going into a salad raw, and then you just let it soak in ice water for about 15 minutes or so, and that just sort of cuts the harshness. It takes a little bit of that edge off. So
yeah,
you can do. So I'll just take the ends off here and peel this away, and then I'm just going to slice this as thinly as I can. But shallots are a really big part of my cooking, especially in salads. I use them a lot in salad dressings. I also use them in recipes that would call for a small amount of onion, like a tuna salad or guacamole or something. And that way, you know, you don't have that like 3/4 of an onion sitting in your fridge for days. So just like super thin, like that. And then we'll add this, and then a little bit more dried oregano. Perfect. And then some parsley, and then, you know, the feta. Now the feta is optional. I know that there are a lot of, you know, vegans out there, but you don't want to add it, you don't have to, but I'll be honest, it's easier and easier to find great plant-based, like natural dairy alternatives now, even in the cheese department. So there is one brand that I like that I can get at my local natural food store by a company called VioLife, and they make a fantastic vegan feta. So just in case. So let's add some parsley, because if it didn't look pretty enough, now it's gonna look prettier. All right, so I always keep my herbs. This is another little thing that just sort of makes my life easy. I have most of my herbs washed and ready to go. So parsley, mint, cilantro, dill, not basil, because basil doesn't really appreciate being
it gets gross real fast.
Totally gross. And in fact, I keep my basil out on the counter. I'll show you guys, hold on.
Do you have it in a jar?
Yeah, I do. So I keep it like this. See that, you guys?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I agree.
I keep it out because it likes, let's just say this. I was gonna say it likes heat. It's more that it doesn't like cold.
Yeah.
And so everything else I keep in these little bags and then in the fridge, and then, but not basil. Okay, so parsley in, there we go. And then we'll add in, I'm gonna toss this together first. And then add in the pinch of, so like we could just eat this. Who needs a pepper?
I was gonna say, it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna mix this together first. So I'm gonna add the feta at the last minute, because if you toss feta around too much, because it's so soft and creamy, it will start to just spread around and get too mushy.
Yeah.
So that's what's gonna go inside our peppers.
Beautiful.
Really beautiful. Yeah. And then as far as feta goes, got a little bit here. You use as much as, for as little as you want, but I'm very particular about feta. So I really think that, first of all, anything that is cow's milk as far as feta goes is not real feta.
All right.
So no cow's milk.
Sheep only?
Sheep, I prefer sheep, but if it's a sheep goat blend, that's okay too.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the feta that you get in the market, I mean, as long as it's just, you know, mostly sheep, it's just going to be like so much creamier, more flavorful and moister. So that's what I would say to go for. And read your label. Sometimes there's preservatives added that you don't necessarily want. So I love feta. I mean, it's like the one thing that keeps me from being vegan is feta.
And so you're slicing that and putting it in.
Yeah, I'm slicing it and kind of crumbling it.
Yeah.
I just like a little bit of that thinness, but really just crumble away. So it doesn't have to be so like precious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could do more and I could top the peppers with more. And so that's like that's your salad. And I'll add a pinch of salt as well. And that's it. And you don't have to add too much salt because the feta has salt and the olives have salt.
Right.
A little bit, especially because tomatoes really need salt. So there. So that's looking great. Clean up my station here. And then once those peppers are out, which shouldn't be too much longer, you just toss this in there and you can serve it. I personally don't mind vegetables that are roasted at room temperature. So I think that, yeah, people need to get over the fact that, you know, they have to be hot out of the oven. I think they can totally be at room temperature. So
yeah, I think sometimes they taste better too, when they've had a little time to just sort of, you get all the, I mean, part of roasting them releases those nice juices that caramelize, and then they have a little more time to like settle, right? I think it tastes better sometimes.
Yes, I totally agree. So I'm a big fan of, you know, just make your life easy. So don't worry so much about timing this perfectly in terms of like, those have to be hot. In fact, it's kind of almost better if they're just barely warm or even temperature. And so this is a really nice dish that you can serve if you're doing some socially distanced gatherings. You could totally serve this and have it made ahead of time. This is nice to bring to a picnic. I would probably have the peppers in one container, the salad in another, and then you can just put it in when you get there. I've also eaten the peppers like tacos. So, you know, you can grab them. And then also as a little appetizer, I don't know, have you guys ever seen those little mini peppers? They're like this big.
Oh yeah.
They're so cute. So you could do a very small chopped version of this.
Yeah.
Roast the little mini peppers, obviously for less time, and then stuff those in the same way.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a fun little appetizer.
So the peppers are going to be done.
Yeah, really right now.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, they probably have another minute or so, another couple of minutes. They're getting there.
Yeah.
Not quite soft enough.
So what are you looking for? You want them to soften? Are you looking for them to get black too? I didn't know.
I want them to soften up a bit more. I mean, they could definitely be served like this if you wanted them to be, but I personally like them to just be a little bit softer. If you like a little bit of a char on them, you know, some caramelization, then I would wait for that. But I'm sure these have like another 5-ish minutes to go, and we'll fill them up. Yeah.
So what are your other sort of summer favorite dishes from the book?
Oh gosh. There's so many. Again, like I said, I really like more of the salads and the fresh veggies. There's an avocado toast salad that Oh,
I saw that. I thought that was the best idea.
So crazy for it. So I love that. In fact, I'm going to New York next week to see my family, and my nephew already requested that one. Oh, everybody loves avocado toast. So we're going to do that. And the Chinese chicken salad is so good and refreshing. That has a fantastic dressing on it. So I love that one. The tomato zucchini broil, it looks like nothing, but it's great. And it takes 5 minutes. So I love that one. We make the veggie burgers a lot. It doesn't seem like it's summery, but it's light. I tend to not eat a lot of meat in the summer because I find that to be very heavy. So that one I love. The bronzino fillets with the fresh tomatoes and basil is fantastic. Make that a lot. And then this one I always make when I go back home. This one is the Parmesan baked rockfish with cherry tomatoes. And like, if you don't know, I was just trying to put in a variety of different fishes, so it's not like salmon. But you can make this with cod, you can make it with halibut, And it's really easy. It's like nice enough to serve to friends, but even kids love it. It's really easy for them too. And this is probably one of my most popular cooking class recipes, which is the herb sweet and spicy salmon. This is a good one. So I like that a lot too.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting in you start your soup chapter with this sort of the mason jar soups.
Yeah.
Which I actually think, so my husband is working from home, and there are many days when like it just seems like he's on Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, and he has like 5 minutes to like run in the house and grab something. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, I could have a couple of these in the fridge and then he could pour hot water on them. Are there other things like that where you're sort of like, this is a great thing to like make ahead, or that you just could like freshen really quickly? Because I think even though a lot of us are still spending more time at home, we're still kind of busy at different times of the day.
Yeah.
Are there other things like that where you're like, that's a perfect make ahead, or that's like a, you know, great thing to have on hand?
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, there are a lot of, pretty much every recipe you could probably do ahead of time. Like you can have a veggie burger patty either cooked fully ahead of time or just made, and then you can fry it up. But one of the things that I try to teach in at least like the saute it out, it's this method that I said, when in doubt, saute it out, meaning like you can pretty much saute a lot of different things together, almost whatever that you have in your fridge and freezer, and you'll come up with something good. So that's my default meal, especially if I'm home by myself and I'm working from home, or if I just need something fast, or if it's the morning and I don't really want to start my day off on the wrong foot. Like I will literally start sauteing fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables. I'll pull leftovers. I'll just, you know, start the whole saute with garlic and crushed red pepper and a little bit of oil. And then I'll start putting things in there. And what I'm trying to get people to know what to do is, you know, what to put in first and what to put in last. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you have something fully cooked, like some leftover chicken or some, you know, leftover vegetables, like you can throw that in last. And you can season it up in different ways. Like yesterday I made something with some Ayurvedic spices. The day before I did more like tomato basil, and it really only takes like 5 minutes to put something like that together. The other thing is if you have certain like dressings and sauces made ahead of time for like week. So for example, I flipped through the kelp noodles with the chili sesame dressing. Right? So if you have that dressing done ahead of time, you can put together a bowl for yourself with, you know, if you have like quinoa that's in the fridge or even the freezer, you know, and you quickly saute it to warm it through. And then you grab some raw vegetables and some leftover veggies from last night. You can do what I call a bowl. And we do bowl night like once a week in my house because there are different styles of eating in our house now. And so it just makes it easier for me. Like, you know, my son wants a piece of salmon, but my husband will only eat like the tofu or the tempeh. And so then I can, you know, pull everything together with that one sauce and make everybody happy. So it's nice to have things like that done at the beginning of the week. The other thing that I rely on a lot is tortillas. So tortillas can be used in so many different ways in terms of like breakfast, and it's very sunny all of a sudden. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, wraps. You know, you can do a quesadilla without cheese. I have a Green Goddess quesadilla in there. There are so many different ways that you can use a good quality tortilla. So that's one of the foods that I was saying, you know, you don't have to make tortillas from scratch. You can find high quality tortillas in the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll last for a few days at least too.
Oh,
so you
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What about your kids? So what kinds of things are they eating? And you're obviously feeding them a lot more than usual in this moment.
My kids are a lot older. So, you know, I've been there is all I can say, but I have a 23-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So for people that have been following my blog for a while, my 16-year-old was very lovingly named Mr. Picky back in the beginning of the blog because he was picky, and he's still kind of picky. He's not as picky as he used to be, and he's not as picky as many kids, but he loves the name, so it's kind of stuck. But, you know, the kids really eat what I make. They really like the kind of food that I make. My son is a little bit more particular. So, you know, I might make a piece of fish that has herbs on it and he'll scrape off the green herbs, but he knows enough to say, or not to say, I don't want that. So, you know, he's pretty self-sufficient as well. So same smoothie every single day. You know, my daughters are a little bit more adventurous, and they're total foodies. So, you know, they like, young girls really like the good stuff because they've already made that connection between what they eat and how they feel. So my girls want a lot of fresh stuff. They like fresh veggies. They like, you know, whole grains. They like lean fish, things like that.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have sort of different eating styles in your house right now. So it sounds like, is your husband vegan? Is that?
He's like 90% vegan.
Okay.
Yeah. So we all kind of gave up beef. That's not to say that there aren't beef recipes in the book, that there definitely are. But we don't eat beef anymore. I don't really like it, so it was kind of easy for me to give it up. And the rest of my family didn't really care. So we've given that up. We don't really eat that much poultry, maybe like once every 10 days or so. We're big fish eaters. My husband is so-so about it, but we really like seafood a lot. So we'll eat it 2 or 3 times a week. And then, you know, the rest of the family has started to appreciate more of the, I would say, like the healthier plant-based options like tofu and tempeh. So we do that maybe once a week or so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it can be difficult because, you know, my son also, he's still growing and he's active and he's a teenage boy. And my husband and I don't really, I don't know, we've transitioned a little bit now to eating a little bit less at dinner time. We sort of like that more light meal at the end of the day. And my son is starving.
No, I know, right? Yeah. And if I have an 18-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter.
Right.
They also, you know, now that it's summer, they each wake up at like, you know, afternoon sometimes. And so it's like, you know, David and I are kind of like, oh, well, what do we really want for dinner? And they're like, it's basically lunch for them, right? So it's like peak eating time. And so, yeah, we're all on these like different.
You know what's funny about that, what you said about that, is that very early on in the pandemic, I noticed that we were all starting to be on different schedules and that some people in the house were eating breakfast a little bit late and then they weren't ready for lunch. And I'm like, no. Like that's when I established like this set meal time. So like if you wake up at 10, lunch is going to be at 1 o'clock. So plan accordingly. Yeah.
Well, and they're fending for themselves basically until dinner time because same thing. It's like, I'm not going to be the short order cook all day. This is not what I signed up for. So yeah, exactly.
Very true.
Do you want to check on the peppers? Cause I'll take a look at the questions. And if you have questions, if you missed at the beginning, please use the Q&A button at the bottom and we will go to those. Let's see. Well, those look good. I can tell from here. They have that nice, like, crinkly around the edges sort of look that they get when they're roasty.
And then you just literally fill them up. And you can wait until, again, like I said, that they're a little bit more room temp, but there we go. This is not going to be styled by a professional stylist.
That's okay. Because we all have that at home, right?
Right. It's definitely not one of my fortes, is the food styling or food photography. Right. So I'll just show you guys. Put a little green one in there too. Let's see that.
It looks delicious.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's my dinner tonight.
I was going to say, this is perfect. You're rolling out of this. I'm going to make I've got like everything ready to make a panzanella as soon as I'm done with this.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, same idea.
Summer dish.
Similar idea, at least.
Yeah.
All the summer. So we have a question about your go-to brands of tofu, since we were just talking about.
That's a great question. So tofu, because it's a soy product, should be organic first and foremost. If not organic, at least non-GMO, because otherwise it will be GMO. Soy is one of the top 4 GMO crops in this country. So people think that GMO is like great, and it is, but it doesn't imply organic, whereas the reverse is true. So organic implies non-GMO. Soy can also be a bit hard to digest. So the best option for tofu would be something that is sprouted, which means it's been through a soaking process, which does make it more digestible. So something that is sprouted and organic. So my top 2 choices would be a brand called Wildwood Organics. You can get that at Whole Foods. And then Trader Joe's has a sprouted organic tofu as well. And it's strikingly similar, the packaging, to the Wildwood one.
So it probably is Wildwood.
So it's probably Wildwood.
We have that experience all the time at Trader Joe's where I'm always like, oh yeah, this is just like that.
Right.
Let's see. Oh yeah. So Cindy had a question about the herbs. Do you put a damp paper towel in the bag when you store your herbs?
It depends. If the herbs are a little bit moist still, like if they haven't gotten all the water off of them, I might put a damp paper towel in there, and that can keep them a little bit fresher. So the operative word though is damp. Like I would never put a dry paper towel in there because that will just suck the moisture out of the herbs. I do like this one bag. I'll go get it right now. I'll take you guys with me. There's a bag that I'm using for a lot of the greens that I wash ahead of time, and it's called Veggie Bag. And you can put herbs in these. This is a big one because it's for, salad greens, but it's Veggie, VEJI bag, and you just dampen it, but you can actually probably make it yourself because it's like a towel, and it's damp, and then you put the greens in there. I was using something called Nido's, so I really put a lot of my clean stuff in here, but they went out of business. So, so now I'm using Veggie bags.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've used just even like, it's interesting the veggie bag is like a towel because I've used just like a tea towel.
Yep.
And then I'll use the bag that whatever I bought came in and sort of wrap the things in the towel and then put them back in that bag, and that kind of does the same.
Does the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
And it's cheaper.
Yeah, I have so many tea towels at this point. So
yeah.
So we have another question about from Beth about your favorite, most versatile sauces for bowls.
Oh, good question. I would say my number 1 is, and this is from my first cookbook, there's a green sauce. It's called either an ají verde or a green sauce. It's Peruvian in nature, and it goes with the South American roast chicken recipe in my first cookbook. And I am obsessed with that sauce, and my family loves it too. It's cilantro based, and it's like cilantro with a little bit of mayo and like just a pinch of Parmesan cheese and some lime juice and some white wine vinegar. It's just absolute heaven. So I like that one. I do a vegan cheese sauce that's on my website. It originally started from a mac and cheese, and then I morphed it, and it has become one of our favorite go-to sauces that we drizzle on bowls as well. The chili sauce that's in Quicker Than Quick it's like a chili sesame dressing. We love that one too on different bowls. So, and sometimes we'll just do like a Mexican bowl night, and we'll just do like salsa and guacamole, and that can work out well. And then the last one that I've been doing a lot of lately, in fact, that was my bowl today at lunch, was basil tahini. So just the tahini sauce, the lemon tahini dressing on my site, and then I blend like a 1/4 cup of fresh basil leaves into it, and I love it.
That sounds great. One more wrapper question. Danielle wanted to know if you've used the beeswax wrappers to store cheese, and do they work?
they don't work for that long. That's the problem. So you can use them for a couple of uses. And I wanted to love them, and people would give me them as gifts. And I also felt like the cheese would start to dry out a little bit unless you were using it frequently. So I would say it would probably work if you would go at that cheese kind of more often, but if you're letting it sit there for, weeks at a time, it's probably not the best.
Yeah. What I do like them for is I bought a couple of the great big ones, and I love them for sourdough bread.
Oh, that's a great idea.
They do a wonderful job sort of keeping the bread fresh without holding in so much moisture that it gets soggy, right? Yeah. They're great for that.
Oh, good.
And they've started to lose their stickiness a little bit, but they're so big, you just lay it on the bottom and it works great.
That's a great tip.
Let's see, Karen wanted to know if you had any special tips for cooking for two without having leftovers to eat for days.
And I'm not, Karen, I bet you probably know this, but a lot of times people don't think to have a recipe. So if the recipe says it serves 6 people, you can most of the time have that recipe very easily, and then you might have just leftovers for one for the next day, or something that you can stretch out. A lot of times it's just my husband and me. My son might be out. One of my daughters went back to Texas. I've got another daughter who's, sometimes here, she's sometimes not. So sometimes it's just us for dinner. And, I will just have a soup recipe, or, sometimes I'll make a recipe and then, freeze half of it as well. So that's something that I would encourage you to think about. The other thing is I really like to keep things on hand, like individual pieces of frozen fish. That's one of my go-tos for a quick weeknight dinner. And that's a really easy thing to make for 2 people, because you can just defrost 2 pieces of fish, then you can make an appropriate amount of rice or potatoes, and roast some vegetables, and that's just a quick dinner if you throw some chimichurri sauce on it or whatever. So that's, to me, I don't find it that difficult to actually try and take a recipe and adapt it down.
Melinda wanted to know, I guess, when your kids were 6, what was your favorite kid food to make? She has a skeptical 6-year-old.
Stay the course. Okay. Here's what I tell all of my mommy students is that if somebody told you that if you continued to provide a wide variety of healthy foods for your kids in a very calm manner, and that in 10 years they would eat almost all of it, you would probably relax, right? So that's kind of how I approached it. I was very calm with my kids. My son, like I said, was really, really difficult, and he's still kind of difficult. But on the other hand, I've seen how much he's grown and evolved in terms of his eating. And the same thing with my oldest daughter. She was really picky, and she came around too. So it's what you're trying to do is really model good eating habits. That's, to me, the most important thing. So if you and your spouse or partner, or if you're single, whatever, if you're modeling good eating habits, the message is, this is how we eat, and this is how you're going to eat. So it is helpful if you can eat with your kids as much as possible, and also try and encourage them to, have a habit of at least trying something instead of just saying no. Just one taste is, what I would say to my son. The other thing is, with my son, again, who was my pickiest one, I call it finding your child's corn tortilla, because when he was about 6 years old, he would pretty much eat anything in a corn tortilla. So I would present the soup and he would say, I don't really want that. It doesn't look good to me. I don't like that. And then I would say, would you like it with some corn tortillas? And a lot of times he would say yes. So it would either be corn tortilla chips inside, even if it didn't go, who wants to eat cauliflower soup with corn tortilla chips? That doesn't make sense. But he might be more inclined to try it. So it's just trying to it's really trying to understand your child, and you are your child's expert. So there aren't like these magic recipes that every single kid on the planet is going to like, but it's more like you knowing your child and then trying to kind of work with what you've got.
Yeah.
That said, my kids have always liked things that are maybe a little bit different. Like my son won't eat macaroni and cheese. He won't eat pizza. He doesn't like green herbs. So, you know, those things were always out the window. Won't eat a sandwich, but he's always liked lentils for some reason. And he's always liked beans and anything in a taco. So anything taco related. So, you know, we made fish tacos, and now we made cauliflower tacos and tofu tacos and beef and chicken. We make lots of different types of tacos. I do a lot of DIY kind of setups in my house. I always have. So a DIY oatmeal bar. He always really appreciated having a little bit of control with his food. A DIY soup bar. So, and this was really more for his benefit than for anybody else's. I don't toss salads normally because I don't like to have salad go to waste. So I'll have a bowl of salad, I'll have some toppings on a plate, I'll have the dressing on the side, and that way everybody can kind of make their own. And the same thing with the DIY bowl night, DIY baked potato night. Tacos do lend themselves to topping bars. So 6-year-olds kind of like to have a little bit of control.
Yeah, taco night or burrito bar, we call it, is always the most popular night in my kitchen, has been for years, I think. So yeah. Yeah, totally. We have time for just one more question, and I'm sorry I'm not going to have time to get to all of them, but it's actually kind of stepping back in a little bit more of a career question. How did you start your cooking instruction business, and how did you decide to do that in homes?
It was a total fluke, honestly. I mean, I was just sort of trying to figure out how to get back into the workforce. I was an economics major. I have my MBA in marketing. I had worked for a film studio. I didn't want to go back to that. I love to cook, and I was in a cooking group at the time for a couple of years where we would rotate amongst our houses with a bunch of friends. It was like a book club, but cooking. And this chef would come in once a month, and she would teach us a bunch of recipes, and we had a great time, and we would eat together, etc. Did that once a month. So I was at the same time really getting into nutrition, and I was studying it. And I was starting to see that there was kind of like this disconnect between what people were eating and health and wellness. And so I would start to like whisper to my friends in the group, like, I wouldn't use that. Like I would use this instead, or I would use whole wheat flour, or I would reduce that. And I also entertained all the time. I still do. Well, not right now, but I really find entertaining to be just one of my great pleasures, and I don't stress out about it. So my friends were starting to notice that I knew a lot about making substitutions and, you know, healthy stuff. People were always asking me for my recipes. People noticed that I cooked dinner and lunch and breakfast for my family all the time, and that I wasn't stressed out about it. And so one day, one of my friends just said, "You should be teaching this class." And I said, "That's really funny." And long story short, they asked me a couple more times, and I finally said yes. I'm like, oh, it might be fun to kind of do this once a month until I get my act together and I know what I really want to do with my life. So the model of the class was already in people's homes. So I just ended up taking over that group from that chef. And then from there, it just exploded. People would invite other people. They would start their own groups. They would invite, you know, it exploded really fast. So what started off as something that I thought was going to be once a month quickly went to, you know, 6 times a month, and then it was 4 times a week within a couple of years.
Wow. And now here you are.
Here I am. You know, if I had seen all this, like whenever I started this in 2018, I wouldn't even started.
Well, yeah. But, hey, you know, you're, how much worse can it get after this, right? Like what else can happen?
You're funny. Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really lovely. And where else? So if we have people watching who are new to your work, besides getting the cookbook from booklarder.com, where else can they find your work?
I'm really easy to find. All my handles are at Pamela Salzman or PamelaSalzman.com.
Great. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And now we can all go make a really quick dinner.
Yeah, got plenty of time.
to say, but you're done. So
I'm done. I'm totally done. I'm going to make myself a mocktail.
I love it. Thank you so much. Have a lovely
Thanks,
evening,
everybody.
everyone. And thank you for tuning in. Like I said, you can watch it again on YouTube, Book Larder YouTube. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.